Great. Under item 2, discussion items 2.1, request from Grand Forks Grill, DBA Wild Bill Sports Saloon for extension of time to transfer ownership Class 4 alcoholic beverage license. Ms. Storstad, good evening.
Yes, good evening, President Sandy, members of the committee. As you stated, Grand Forks Grill LLC, they currently hold a Class 4, which is food and beverage alcohol beverage license, doing business as Wild Bill Sports Saloon. That's at 1405 Demers Avenue. They have ceased operations earlier this year, and they have the property up for sale or lease. Mike Tupa, who is also joining us virtually, is on the line here if you have any questions. But on behalf of Mike Tupa, the request has been made to extend their license out to the end of 2023. With no council action, this license would be set to expire on December 31st of this year. This would require council approval, so we bring it forward to you. We have done this in the past with a couple businesses, and they would just ask that we extend this out to provide them time, additional time to sell or lease their property. And the request is attached also with the staff report.
Thanks, Ms. Storstad. Any comments or questions?
Move approval.
Moved by Kavami. Is there a second by Weber? Any other comments? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 2.2, autonomous food delivered by robots. Mr. Phelan.
Council President Sandy, members of the committee whole, we have several people online. City Attorney Dan Gosted, City Engineer Al Grasser, and City Planner Ryan Brooks. We had a meeting with UND and Grubhub and their associates, and so last week, and they want to try to move forward, and we thought it was worthy enough to put that in front of you to get some feedback before we move forward with any permitting and licensing and all that sort of thing. So with that, online we have Orlin Rosassen, who is the UND Dining Services Director. And then we also have, and I'm going to ask him to introduce his team, we have Travis Price from Grubhub is on, and I'd just like to have him introduce his team. And then we have two presentations that we attached later today, and I think they intend to give you an overview of both of those presentations. I have those in front of here, so we'll go over those and then just ask for some feedback, and likely, if you're positive about it, we'll try to bring back a solution. So with that, Travis, if you wouldn't mind introducing your team.
Thank you so much, and good evening, council members. Travis Price here with Grubhub Campus specifically, an unknown wing of Grubhub to many. We represent the campus side of Grubhub, and specifically closed ecosystem mobile ordering. I'm joined today by JR from our government team and John. I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hello, council members. J.R. Sterrett, Senior Manager, Government Relations for Grubhub. Thank you very much for the time today.
Good afternoon. This is John, Director of Operations for KiwiBot. Thank you for your time today as well.
Okay.
Excellent.
Travis, I'm going to put up the one that says KiwiBot Delivery Review. Is that the one you want first?
Yes, and I think Orlin was going to speak before us, but he's saying his mic is not working. So give me just
I think you're muted, Orlin. If you could unmute yourself.
Whoever owns the presentation may have to unmute him.
Well, I think in the meantime, I'm gonna put in the first presentation
Sure.
and have you.
Excellent. Well, we can kick it off. So just to give everybody a quick intro, we're going to have 2 slide decks to kind of zip through tonight. We'll try and be speedy, but not too speedy about it. Before we get started, just to give you a general idea, KiwiBot Delivery is one of Grubhub's partners, particularly in the campus space. We are currently partnered with University of North Dakota, and we help facilitate the mobile ordering and walk-up ordering on campus. So typically when you think of Grubhub, you may think of Grubhub delivery services, the general marketplace. I want to order a pizza, have it delivered to my house. What we're talking about today is closed ecosystem, which means that we work directly with the University of North Dakota in a closed ecosystem space where students are securely signed and onboarded into this campus ecosystem, presented with the campus-specific shops and restaurants and able to use their, campus tenders to place orders. It looks like, Orland, I'm still not able to hear you, sir.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
Perhaps he needs to go out and come back in. Sometimes that happens.
Her microphone is unmuted. If she, perhaps try saying something.
No.
Nope. Now perhaps you mute and unmute.
Hey, Travis, while we do that, I'll advance the slides if you just let me know, and I'll just keep moving them forward, whomever is presenting.
Sorry.
Excellent. So continuing into our first presentation, the first presentation, we're going to just talk about the robots. So to start with, we'll look at the robots, get a background in who our robot delivery partner KiwiBot is, a little bit of their history, and then we'll transition over to a Grubhub-centric presentation where we'll talk more about how this is an expansion of existing services and really what the focuses are and kind of the major touch points of this program. With that, I'll transition over to John, who will be speaking on the KiwiBot slides.
John, I have the pre-launch evaluation report slide deck up.
Perfect. Can you hear me?
Now I can, yeah.
Awesome. Okay, you could skip to the next one. Just I want to mention what KiwiBot brings. What we want to bring is joy to the community and the schools and the campuses where we're actually over 30 schools right now. The service allows students, faculty, and staff to not only invest their time more productively, but also to merge into robotics. It's been an exciting lever for KiwiBot to be part of this project, and we want to be part of the community and help students get closer to the world of technology, robotics, and entrepreneurship. That's the truth. As you can see, our robots are state-of-the-art technology. What you're seeing right now is that's the map out of North Dakota, of the campus there. What we do is we choose different locations to drop off the items so students don't have to actually lose time studying. So you can move on to the next one. You can see here the office space that we usually put inside of the schools. This space is very, very close to students. They could just come into our space, learn about technology and the robots and what we do there. You can move to the next one, please. This is the technology of the robot. Some safety features we have. We have over 10 sensors on the robots. They're state-of-the-art technology. We hadn't had any issues whatsoever so far with safety inside of the schools or actually mapping out cities at this time. You can move to the next one, please. This is a little bit of the deals basics. We don't need to touch this right now. You can move to the last one. So that's about KiwiBot. We started in 2017, 5 years ago. As we mentioned, this is a great partnership with Grubhub we have right now at this point, and we are looking forward to be present here in North Dakota. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Continuing over, so to talk a little bit more about what's KiwiBot going to actually be doing with the University of North Dakota and with Grubhub campus specifically. So right now what we're doing is we're very much in the mapping and kind of planning process. So there's a look at the KiwiBot. As you'll notice, there are eyes on the front of it, and the KiwiBot does respond. So one of the major focuses from our supplier, KiwiBot, is that not only is this robot delivering food within a closed and controlled ecosystem, but engaging and driving engagement with the student body population. This means that while artificial intelligence is helping the robot determine what would be the most effective route within its pre-approved and closed ecosystem boundaries, the robot is also making smiley faces when it sees another bot or a human, when a student stops to say hi. When students try and block the robot and prevent it from leaving, it will make angry eyes. Granted, that is the height of what it's able to do from a preventative stance. Grubhub campus, we've been engaging with robot delivery a little over a year now. We started by launching at The Ohio State University, followed up by the University of Arizona. Our first launch, we had 66,000 students walking around, and our second, just under 48,000, along with an artificially intelligent, federally funded trolley car whose tracks we had to cross. With that, we're now seeing our footprint expand to probably well over 10 campuses as we enter into Q1, with KiwiBot having 30 under their own, give or take, under their own personal portfolio. So what happens next? So we can go to the next slide. So we're going to do a mapping process, and it's going to look a lot like this, and KiwiBot kind of already touched on this. So first, we sit down with the university, and we talk about what are the shops that we want to deliver from. And so again, when we talk about shops, we're talking about on-campus shops specifically, not any shop that's present in the Grubhub Marketplace ecosystem. These are shops that you wouldn't even see or be able to order from unless you were onboarded into this closed ecosystem space. Meaning, while anybody from the public is welcome to order through Grubhub, and technically you can onboard onto the University of North Dakota's page as a guest, it won't be generally available to the public. So with this, we work with the university and the university partners like ADA, transportation facilities, safety, to determine where are the best loading points around these restaurants, and then where are the predetermined delivery points. Now this is very important because while Grubhub is facilitating this order, we're also not allowing the end user to pick some random location, meaning students aren't going to be able to stop their robot ahead of the order, decide to have an order delivered in the middle of an intersection, or anything extreme of that nature. Instead, only those predetermined delivery points will be selectable before they complete their order. With that, we will then pass this order back of house, so we can go to the next slide here. So with this, we'll take an order through the normal Grubhub app, but again, embedded in this closed ecosystem space. In the slide deck, if you have time to review, you'll see what this ordering process looks like, and that we are very transparent in communicating that a student or guest is ordering through robot delivery. We expect 98% of the mobile orders on campus to still go through the typical fashion and be for pickup, meaning that students want to grab their food and sit down and eat with friends. But we expect that around 2% of the given order volume will go to robot delivery. And we're bringing these robots as a way to help serve the customers who are in hard to reach places for vehicles, and expand to those guests who are having a difficult time engaging, depending on what they're involved in at the time, engaging with on-campus dining. We're trying to broaden the scope of that and really expand on our existing services. Continuing to the next slide. Here we can see that the students will also be able to track the robot, meaning once they've placed this order and the back of house prep team has fulfilled the order, they will then see that the order is en route and actually be able to track the robot. At this point in time, they'll also be able to contact customer service. Now, the robot, when it is en route, will only be traveling on sidewalks or ADA-approved pedestrian-friendly thoroughways. The robot will not be traveling outside of the map, meaning the robot, while engaging with artificial intelligence, it is not able to say, I've decided that I'm not going to listen to the rules today. The robot is the ultimate rule follower, meaning it will always stay within the routes that we've determined. It will pick the fastest route to the student, transparently communicate that route, be within the means of our customer service team as well as the KiwiBot customer service team throughout the entire delivery. You can't stop it ahead of time, nor can you grab the food out of it. It's currently locked. And then once it finally arrives again to its predetermined location, the student or guest, whoever is ordered, will solely be able to unlock the robot via the app. And of course, if there's any issues during this process, we have the full hierarchy of how we handle each situation, as well as 2 customer service teams on standby to assist the guest. Continuing to the next slide. And we can actually continue on once more. This is just showing unlocking the robot, a little preview into Grubhub product work not released yet. And then one slide back. This will also show on here that we do communicate outbound with the student or guest when the robot has arrived. That means that if they're not paying attention to their phone and the robot has arrived, we're sending push notifications at a certain minute mark. We're doing an automated call. And then ultimately, if the order is abandoned or we find that something's been left in the robot, we can take steps from there. I'm going to continue on 2 slides forward, one more. Thank you very much. Now, upcoming dates that relate to kind of our project and what we're trying to do. So actually this week we have a KiwiBot team that is going to be arriving on site to the university. Now, this is going to be the first time that the robots have been to the city, been to the university, and they're really going to be there in a limited capacity. The focus right now is going to be traveling through those university walkways and starting the mapping process. So at this point in time, we're not facilitating or accepting any deliveries, nor is it available within the app. We're only going through and mapping. Then continuing on to the week of the 20th, this is when we're going to aim to do our first test orders. Now, when I say test orders, this is different than a soft launch. This is very much back of house KiwiBot team and back of house Grubhub engineers and product people doing testing together along with our university staff. As we look into the month of December, this is when we aim to start at least kind of a completing the storage space and potentially releasing these KiwiBots into a limited on-campus facility. This means that maybe one shop would be live, we'd be delivering in a small scope, and it would be available for the general student population. And then finally, looking forward into the month of January, Q1 for Grubhub, this is when we're aiming to do a larger launch along with the spring back to school. I know I've done a lot of talking here, and so with that, I did want to bring up that as we look at this map, one of our considerations and where JR from the Grubhub side will be very involved is as we look to expand on the mapping, this also means that we may need to cross some city intersections. So with that, I pass that over to JR for any questions that we have on Grubhub's end, and appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Travis. And I'll just say that we certainly have had the opportunity to work with cities throughout the county to review and adopt a permitting and licensing process that works for the city. As this emerging technology might not fit into existing permitting structure for the city, we expect some form of permitting process to be established. We would certainly like to work with you in partnership to see what that process might be. The last thing I'd say is certainly we have had success in the past of doing demos on campus as well, and we certainly welcome the city out to witness these robots in action, because it really is seeing as believing sometimes to see these little rovers in action.
Council President Sandy, I think that's the presentation, and I think the folks, our guests, are willing to answer any questions, but what they would like is at least your head nod is that you're willing to give it a shot. Obviously, they're going to be on some public right-of-ways, crossing streets and those sorts of things, and it will be strictly on the UND campus, but as we know, there's city infrastructure that intertwines along the way.
Yeah, and I guess now that I have a mic, I guess I would like to add that, this would be a great addition to the campus. It is something that was actually brought to me by a couple of students almost 9-10 months ago. They'd expressed some interest in desire, I should say, to have this come on campus. And we are fortunate enough to hear tonight that Kate Elliott, student UND student government representative, is here. I don't know if she wants to chime in and say anything or not, but she's certainly welcome to. So,
and Cheryl, if you could bring up the virtual speakers now, so we can all see them. Okay, there we go. We can see you now.
Okay, I'll go ahead and go. I'm Katie Elliott, so I am our liaison intern for the City of Grand Forks and then UND as well. I actually just found out about this morning, and then really in the afternoon here. So I do forgive not being as prepared as I'd like to be, but just based on hearing everything today about this, I think this would be something really cool for UND. Something that I want to point out is that if we implement this, we would be the first campus in North Dakota to do that. And I think that's really cool because we would get to kind of pave that way for everybody else. And I just think the other thing I'm really excited about is because this uses a lot of our ADA-based paths, we'll be able to really see what some of our students that need those accommodations can kind of see what their path is like. And I think this can also help pave the future for them too, so that we can make sure campus is accessible for them as it will be for these robots. So I'm excited to learn more about this. That's kind of my input as a college student myself. I'm super excited about this. So I love seeing the videos on TikTok and Facebook and everything. So I think this will be great.
Council President, a couple of questions we asked, and obviously we're upper Midwest people. So number one, we live in a different climate. I mean, we're not down in Tucson at the University of Arizona. Number two is, boy, this has got to be really expensive. And so could you talk about the price point and do you know what you're getting into when you're going to come to the University of North Dakota in Grand Forks in January?
Travis, why don't you take that?
Yeah, I didn't want to overstep, but I'm happy to speak to that. So I can't say that we are prepared for it. Being an avid outdoorsman myself, I find myself outside in the -13s and -20s in southern Colorado. And even though I won't be the delivery robot who would be running these orders, I can say that our team's prepared for it. With that, I think that kind of our goal is we're always going to try and take the path of least resistance, but with the main focus always being right of way. And so along with working with the university, we're going to find the most clear paths to make these deliveries regardless of the season. And the robots are built with four-wheel drive systems, so they are intended for these types of scenarios. Along price point, we have a price point that we've worked out with the university, but towards the end user, the delivery fee is expected to be $3 flat with no additional service fee attached. Which we are happy to announce given the typical human delivery related fees.
Good information. Other questions? Mr. Weber?
Thank you, President Sandy. It sounds fun, exciting. I'm ready to place an order. I think our only decision tonight is where it crosses right-of-way, city right-of-way. This is unmanned system. It's not UAS, but UAS is the only body of law that we currently have around this. How do we make these kinds of determinations?
And that's precisely the issue with respect to the permitting and licensing process. We would review that and assure that our permitting and licensing would account for those type of issues to the extent we need to.
So tonight you're looking for a motion pending on your recommendation?
It would be, the way I'm looking at it is some tacit approval, because once we get that, then I'd start working on developing probably an ordinance similar to what you did with the scooters recently. Probably maybe not to that degree of detail, but a similar process where we develop an ordinance, because I think they're right. I don't think there is a quote permit or licensing that we currently have that fits neatly into what's being proposed here.
Right. In fact, this is just a presentation. This isn't even looking for a motion tonight. Just a general green light, move ahead.
That's what we're looking for. And then we'd likely bring it back to, if we needed to be expedient, it would be 2 readings. So we may even bring it back to a future city council meeting, get a first reading and further discussion on it, knowing that we'd have a second round at the city council and a public hearing.
I'm excited to learn more. That's where I'm at. Yep.
Ms. Wazowski?
Thank you, Mr. Sandy. I guess I have some concerns. My concerns are them crossing kind of Columbia, it shows on this map, and also crossing the roads on 42nd. Just kind of more concerned about any kind of traffic delays that could happen along more of those larger roads. I guess I don't really see any issue with them scooting around campus in the snow. I do have a question though. I'm assuming because these are AI, that they have cameras on them and they record and store data. What kinds of things are going to be done with that data? What's going to be done with the video footage that is taken around campus, just for more privacy?
I can speak to the camera piece. So out of the box, these robots, so we really consider data in 3 states. There's the remote operation data. So this means that a human has actually remoted in and is driving the robot. and it's recording in the process. There is machine learning data. So this is data that is gathered by the robot, and it is stored temporarily, and then there is that data where it goes through the machine learning or the processing. In all states, with that video data specifically, faces and license plates remain blurred. So in all cases, there is no onboard technology that would ever be used to recognize a person specifically, but for all cases, the video footage that includes any faces of students, guests, those walking by, along with license plates, is automatically blurred for all states of the data. The usage of that data that's collected is primarily to improve the performance of the robots. Things that the KiwiBot would be looking for is at whatever turn, I won't make one up here, but at certain turn, we see that the front left wheel is spinning during these hours of the day with this type of payload. In reflection, the robot is taking too tight of a turn, which is causing the front left wheel to go over the curb and thus lose traction. And so they would then take that data to provide a better route within those, what's already provided, the boundaries, and effectively increase the throughput of the delivery. So those are the types of things that they're looking for with data, from my understanding. And John, please feel free to fill in for any of those other questions there.
No, that's 100% correct, Travis.
Okay, do you think that this program would create additional jobs for our community, or will we lose some with our Grubhub drivers?
So we're not going to lose any from the Grubhub drivers, and I'm glad that you asked about that. So this is for where it's difficult for Grubhub drivers to get to, and it's functioning within the campus ecosystem rather than the marketplace system. Where the Grubhub drivers are currently employed is for the general public locations that want to be featured on Grubhub delivery, which is actually outside of our scope. Our scope is purely limited to the University of North Dakota shops and any shops that would fall under what we would call their ecosystem. And so in that sense, there's actually no Grubhub drivers who would be facilitating these orders right now, and it's difficult for them to do so with the landscape, parking, and all of the other considerations. So the robots are really here to provide an on-campus delivery option versus only off-campus delivery that the students currently experience.
How many robots would you guys start out with, do you think, at the University of North Dakota?
Yeah, good question as well. So right now we're expecting to start out with 15. So 15 would, obviously is a lot smaller number than people typically expect, and a peak volume number of building to 30. Really, I would see 15 to 20 through Q1 and Q2. And then as we kind of expand over the summer and look at next fall, that's when I could see us getting closer to 30.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Travis, how do you keep your batteries warm? Does the machine itself have a heater built in, or?
So in terms of, two things to keep warm in this case. You asked about batteries, but it is kind of also leads toward food. So food is going to be kept warm through insulation versus internal heating or cooling. Basically, our reasoning behind that is we're going to be delivering both hot and cold goods simultaneously. So we want to be able to support both of those. And this is something that we've tested and continue to see good food quality and acceptable food quality. This is also something that we consider when we're building our routes. So we'll never have a delivery point that is far enough out that we would start hitting past 20 minutes in terms of a delivery time frame. In regards to keeping the batteries warm, I'll let John speak to how the robots are built.
Yes, we are working with rechargeable batteries. The batteries last 8 hours. There's the conditions of the weather has no influence over our batteries right now. We've been, deploying robots in Boston with heavy snow. We did that same thing in Denver, so we have no issues with those batteries. We could replace them. It takes 1 minute from one of our operations. Coordinators to just swipe that battery if necessary. So it's not going to interrupt our operations whatsoever.
And to specify, it would be the KiwiBot hiring on-site teams who would be swapping those batteries. So through our partnership with KiwiBot, they will be there on a daily basis. Essentially, think of them as shepherds with the robots, letting the robots out to, go run their business during the daytime, servicing the robots if anything comes up. say a robot for some reason loses a wheel. Unlikely, but just in this situation, there would be a team member on site to actually service that robot there that day and have it return to duty. And then finally that evening, the KiwiBot team would also be there to let the robots in, make sure they're all accounted for, service, charging, and ready for the next day. And John, if I understand correctly, this is something you hire for locally, is that correct?
Yes, we do hire locally, and we do use interns as well from the school.
So we would be looking for to create at least a few jobs for this service.
All sounds great to me too, Mr. Weber. Is there anyone doesn't think this is a reasonable request? Okay, Ms. Osowski doesn't like it. Anyone else think this isn't a reasonable request? Okay. Mr. Gosted, do you need an official action, or is?
No, I think the nods today give me sufficient cause to start the process of putting together some sort of ordinance for a permitting licensing process.
Great. Thank you. Anything else? Mr. Weber, thank you all, Mr. Price, John.
No, thank you.
Merlin. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving right along. Item 2.3, Altru Infrastructure Partnership Funding Request for New Hospital. Mr. Phelan.
Yep, Council President Sandy, members of the committee of the whole. We're back talking about thankfully, the new Altru Hospital, and as you recall, in 2018, the city of Grand Forks committed to up to $2 million to move and to upsize a stormwater force main. And so essentially what that force main did is it was going right through the area where the new hospital was being built. So this city council approved moving forward with moving that facility out of the way, and then we also upsized it. And then we talk about the Vale Circle project. We always had the intent that would likely be phase two, that that new force main would interconnect with that new area with the associated pump station. So the city council approved that. As part of that, also that agreement, the city council approved moving forward with the reconstruction, partnering on the reconstruction of 30th Street, and that's that rural section of roadway that goes behind the hospital. And as part of the hospital project, Altru and the development team have a want to urbanize that section and then try to better integrate it with the coulee and all the various infrastructure. And so the city council committed to that. Obviously, we took a couple years off during the pandemic, and now we're really back there. So the original agreement spoke of those two improvements. And, along the way, when we have engaged on the 30th Street, that's been pushed back to like 2026 after the Altru Hospital has been demolished. We've also had meetings with Altru administration regarding some other potential opportunities for, I'll say, community-wide support for infrastructure development. And those are more incremental than that 30th Street. Right now, we're estimating the 30th Street city cost share on an 80-20 cost share would be $2.5 million, and we would program that. Right now, I was speaking with engineering, and we have that programmed, I think, in 2028, so we would move that forward, advance that to 2026, and we'd have to do some shuffling around with various projects, but it's in your CIP, we just moved that up. The other things we talked about, there's most of the rest of our incremental, and it's upsizing the potable water, fire water supply, that's $26,500. There's some additional stormwater improvements that are spoken of. Stormwater pond improvements, there's going to be 2 ponds, and it's to create some pathways and then some amenities around there. The final issue, as we talked about, there's some things they're going to be doing with the parking lot pavement to better serve public use, and that's, fire engines, that's public transportation buses that service that area. And so that's that additional dollar amount of $84,506. Those are those incremental costs that they feel have a public benefit, and there should be a public share for those particular items. All of those items, the potable water fire supply, we would take that cost out of the water enterprise fund. The transportation related costs, both the strengthening the parking lots, and also 30th would come out of your street and highway fund. And then the stormwater improvements would come out of your stormwater enterprise fund. Those would be those recommendations as part of that. If you are so inclined to move forward, we would likely bring back an agreement, an updated agreement from what we've already approved that would amend that and incorporate some of these items into that particular agreement. Josh Kerwald of JLG, who is the prime consultant on this project, is here, and Christy Halgeran from Altru is also here. So we've been working through Christy as a senior leader at Altru, and so that's what's in front of you today. And obviously, Altru and JLG are here to respond to any questions, or if you want more details or particulars about that to help support this request.
So, Mr. Phelan, just for quick clarification, the delta on this compared to what we had already agreed to is another 294,000 and change, correct?
You are correct.
Right, okay. Mr. Weber, comment?
Whether it's for the convenience and the needs of our elderly or the young families that we're trying to keep here or attract to come here, along with our responsibility as a regional center for retail, for everything else that we do, including healthcare, we are so lucky to have Altru here and making this investment in our community. And when I think back to where we were just a couple of years ago, it seems just miraculous that we're moving along as quickly, that our wonderful partner Altru is moving along as quickly as they have with this project. For me, this is a no-brainer. I'll move approval for the partnership agreement, subject to review and approval from the city attorney.
Second. There's a motion by Weber, second by Kvamme. Further comments? Mr. Kvamme? Hearing none. Any other? None? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Great. Item 2.4, dispatch personnel service proposal, dispatch on demand. Ms. LaHaye, good evening.
Good evening, President Sandy and members of the committee. I'm here tonight in reference to the proposal for dispatch on demand, a dispatch personnel service, similar to traveling nurses is what it would be similar to. As a public safety answering point for the Grand Forks County, we provide dispatch services for all fire, EMS, and law agencies within Grand Forks County. So it is our mission to provide excellent emergency communications, and for that we need to be adequately staffed to minimum levels to provide that, whether it's call taking or dispatching. And this solution would be one piece of the puzzle for us to be able to maintain adequate staffing. Does everybody have the synopsis pulled up? Okay. In the synopsis, it talks about our current staffing levels versus our staffing needs. Currently, we're approved for 20 dispatch positions. We have 9 dispatchers and 5 team leaders, bringing that to a total of 14 that cover 24-hour service. In 2023, our approved positions move up to 2022. So we currently have 1 staff in training, and at the minimums that we're at, it puts quite a strain on our staff right now. We're working 12 hours. Any sick time is automatically overtime called back for coverage during most shifts. And this solution would allow us to be able to train, have meetings, keep our continuing education going, while also hiring and recruiting. So this would be a stopgap solution while we continue. Over the past 4 months, just so you know, some of the things that we've done for recruiting and hiring, we've done a lot of improvements with that. We are doing a FAST app, which is where we interview and test applicants all in one day. So we're shortening the gap for candidates, and it eliminates that long process for hiring. And with that, we're also working with HR for the onboarding to make that shorter so our candidates can apply and start working with us right away. For our training, we've also shortened that a little bit into different phases. We're initially doing a call-taking training where they go for 12 weeks. Then they get out on the floor, they're able to use those skills for a few weeks, and then train to become the radio dispatching side of it. So more progressive training along the way. This stopgap solution would allow us to keep going. So we're working with a company called Motivations. Motivations currently works with us to do our quality reviews every month. And I can proudly say that over the last few years that we've done that, even while shorthanded, we've maintained our scores of 95% or better. So our staff is still doing a great job, even though we're feeling the strain. This contract with Motivations, the terms would be for a year. It would require a 3-month commitment, and then we would renew month to month after that, and we have a 45-day termination clause. The proposal itself is set up into 3 different aspects. There's the launch phase, the logistics, and then the dispatch personnel services. The launch is for the setup fees. So the launch would be where Motivations is going to look at all their applicants that they have and match our requirements for training. So the individuals coming in would be pre-trained. So they would be ready to onboard with us with just 3 days orientation within our department. So they'd be able to start taking calls right away with us. The logistics would be getting people here, back and forth. And then the dispatch personnel service cost would be the fee for the 12 hours per day that we would be looking at. There's 2 different options that we looked at with Motivations, whether we wanted them for 12 hours a day every month or 18 hours. After looking at where we need them, we feel that a 12-hour option would be sufficient to allow our staff the reprieve that we need to maintain. As far as the budget, we would be able to absorb the cost over the next 6 months due to the low staffing that we currently have. So at this time, I'm looking for a recommendation to move forward with the dispatch personnel services and entertain any questions that you have.
Questions? Mr. Kavami?
Yeah, I have a question. Is there, is your staff supportive of this decision?
Yes, our staff, we've been transparent from the very beginning. Staff is fully on board with this, and this afternoon we had the 911 Authority Board also approve this to move forward as well for the 6-month term.
Will there be any of your employees that wanted or look forward to the overtime that won't have access to it now, or has that been an item that's come up?
No, right now, working the 12-hour shifts and extended time, right now we're at a minimum of 3, taking the call taking and all the radio dispatching. Our staff knows that we need more than that, so they're feeling the strain of feeling that they have to come in and work those extra days each and every day. That strain is getting to them where they're going to hit the burnout phase, and we don't want that. We have great staff and we want to retain them instead of putting the extra stress and burden on them to burn them.
Sure, thank you.
So is Motivations located in Denver?
Yeah, Motivations is located in Denver. The company is led by a lady named Maureen, AKA Mo, Motivations. She's been in the 911 field for 20-some years. I've known her. She actually installed our phone system right after the flood and has moved into training, QA, and then now this. She is doing the dispatch on demand in Georgia, Illinois, and she'll be standing it up in Boulder, Colorado here in December. But yes, she is located in Colorado. She has applicants from throughout the United States that would be coming here. They wouldn't be local dispatchers. They would be coming into Grand Forks.
But when we look at logistics for $4,000 a month, I don't see how that possibly covers bringing people in from Denver to work here for a month.
It would be several different people that she would probably be employing coming. And
Exactly.
yeah.
So I don't know how $4,000 covers airfare and room and board.
That's the logistics that she's quoted based on the other counties and states that she's been working with.
Okey dokey. Any other thoughts or
Move approval.
comments? Moved by Kavami, is there a second?
I'll second, and just
Second
note,
by
it's
Weber. Mr. Weber, comment?
Thank you. It's a 3-month commitment, month-to-month renewal. Yes,
Yes.
great.
And
Ready to vote.
the new protocols hopefully will make it easier for us to hire our own people.
Yes.
Great. Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck. Item 2.5, declaration of surplus fire department 75 aerial truck. Chief Lorenz,
Good evening, President Sandy, members of the council. Prior to July of this year, the frontline ladder truck that the department used was a 2000 model, and the reserve was the 1975 that's indicated in this report. In July of this year, we took delivery of our new aerial truck that we ordered as part of the Volkswagen settlement. And as a result, our 2000 model will become the reserve. Therefore, we're requesting to surplus the approximate 47-year-old piece of equipment, and as well as its associated obsolete equipment. I stand for questions.
Pumper have any residual value at all?
We're going to find out. We've had some luck selling old equipment on Gov Deals. Various different organizations buy them for whatever they do with them. At the very least, it's probably got some value for scrap.
Any other questions?
Move approval with the note that if there's no bids, my kids will probably pool their money together.
Moved by
I would not
Kavanaugh.
let your kids operate that piece of equipment, just
Yeah.
so you know.
Is there a second? Second by Osowski. Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
2023 CDBG and CSG programs. Ms. Richards, good evening.
Good evening. It's that time of year again where I come before you to get authorization to proceed with our 2023 Community Development Block Grant and Community Services Grant Program funding. As your budget shows, a major component of our CDBG program is the Corporate Center 1 sale proceeds, the CDBG share of that. That sale has not closed yet. We don't have that money, but we expect it to close by the end of the year, so we expect to have it available for our 2023 program. Typically, we allocate these funds through a competitive process, and we recommend that for the CSG funds as usual, but we're recommending a set-aside for $2.35 million of the CDBG funds to the Senior Citizen Center for a substantial facility rehab that they have been working on. This is a major addition, renovation of their kitchen and food service area. A big shift in demand, both just due to the aging demographic, of which I'm a prime example, and also with COVID, there's just been a shift to more takeout, more or less. So this proposed renovation would both accommodate that increased demand and the different demand to put in a drive-through window, as well as just upgrade the kitchen and kind of general facility upgrades to include re-roof, some HVAC improvements. The overall process is quite different in terms of not being competitive, but this is a very CDBG eligible project. The building is owned by the city, and while the Senior Citizen Center Association typically takes care of the routine maintenance, if major capital improvements are needed, CDBG program has traditionally provided them. So it's very eligible, it's very impactful. The demand is there, and the fact that it's kind of a single shovel-ready project would help our program with timely expenditure concerns, which is a bit of an issue since we've had we'll have 2 years in a row of very large funding, and getting projects done in the post-COVID environment is a bit challenging. The balance of your staff report kind of talks about in general how the process works. This recommendation went to the Community Advisory Committee, and while they had questions about this change from a competitive process, they did support the recommendation. Committee members also kind of made note of the the change in United Way's mission from a regranting agency to a direct service provider has had kind of a negative impact on nonprofits in the community in general, going from basically a source of funds to a competitor for funds. And they just kind of reiterated the importance of those local CSG dollars, and, you know, the need for those is even greater than it has ever been. In terms of what I'm asking is, as I said, it's just authorization to proceed with the 2023 process with the budget and the timeline and process as described, the competitive versus non-competitive. The last page of your staff report includes who the members of that community advisory committee are and has a schedule. If you approve this, we would post a notice of availability of funds. We would have a deadline for the competitive applications of December 30th. The Community Advisory Committee would review and rank those applications in early January. Their recommendations would come back to council in late January, and then we'd have final approval presented to you in early February. I'm certainly happy to stand for questions, and we do have Colette Eisminger, who is the director of the Senior Center here, if you want to have better answers than I can provide on the specifics of the project that's proposed and the need and demand for it.
Mr. Weber, do you have anything to add, sir?
No.
Okay.
I'd love to second a motion on this,
Great.
yeah.
Anyone have any comments or thoughts? Yes, sir.
So I understand. So we have this money, and normally we allow applicants, and this time we're not, right? We're just going to do the senior center thing, right?
That's
Okay.
the recommendation.
Okay,
Yeah, just
perfect.
a
Thank
set
you.
aside.
I just wanted to make sure I understood. Thank you.
Sure.
I motion approval.
Yeah, motion by Osowski for approval, second by Weber.
Sure.
Great. I think this is a fantastic use of these funds personally. The senior center, it's so very important to our community, and there are facilities like this, we just need to dedicate the time when we have the resources, we need to dedicate the time and the money to take care of them. So I think this, whomever's idea this was, Mr. Weber or Ms. Richards, I think it was a great idea. So there's a motion and a second on the table. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Thank you.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Awesome. Item 2.7, FEMA funding for Project 8071 North End Reliever Force Main. Good evening, Ms. Severson.
Good evening, President Sandy, members of the committee. A little history on this project. It's been a collaboration between engineering, public works, FEMA, and the North Dakota Hazard Mitigation. So it's been a long process here. This is a sanitary force main reliever project that will be used in times of a break or times like last spring in times of inflow and infiltration. If there is a break or if there's any excess water, we have to discharge to the river at some point. We initially hired WFW in 2019 to study the area to determine project feasibility and a project cost. The project cost is just shy of $5 million, which is not, we cannot special assess that, so we'd have to pay for that. So in December 2021, we applied for FEMA BRIC grant funding for project scoping, which would be the design and bidding of the project. We just found out in August 2022 that we were selected, and then we received the contract the end of October. So we will now work to pick a engineering consultant to work on the project and apply for funds this December, hear back in August, and then move forward with that project next spring. So it's a long process, but it's worth it in the end. So the design and bidding cost was about $325,000, and that's a 75-25 split with the FEMA, and so our share would be $82,000 roughly.
Great. Any comments or questions? Moved by Kavan. Second by Veen. Great, thank you. Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Severson. Item 2.8, project 8658, East Grand Forks Red River Crossing Engineering Agreement. What's your feeling?
Council President Sandy, members of the committee of the whole, David Krinkle and I from engineering have been working on this project with our colleagues from East Grand Forks, along with our contiguous counties of Polk and Grand Forks. And so what you have in front of you, and David served on the selection committee on behalf of the city of Grand Forks. That committee that was made up of all those entities I spoke of, they have selected SRF consulting firm as the best firm to move forward with the river crossings review. And as part of that, so the other issue is what they did is East Grand Forks has negotiated a fee, and the fee is $151,000. And as you look through the study itself, the study is not going to move us light years ahead. It's really going to move us an incremental step forward to kind of review where we're at and how we can best move forward before we get into environmental documents, before we get into final designing, before we get into construction. I just want to set, the limitations of what this first agreement is going to provide us. And as I recall, I think if we were going to do a full-fledged environmental document and really get us shovel ready, I think the estimated cost to do that was about $3 million with projects like this. So it's a substantial investment, and this is, just so you know, this is a drop in the bucket to where we're moving forward with. Dave and I were speaking together, and we have informed our colleagues for both counties and East Grand Forks that we think we have the Merrifield Bridge in this package, and then we have the Intercity Bridge. Location in this agreement is that it should really be shared among all the four entities. And the one thing if somebody's really real about it is that, number one, they participate, and number two, they help fund things. And so there's no free riders on things. So I think because the Merrifield Bridge is a county-led project and the Intercity Bridge is a city-led, that's where we came up with, let's split this 4 ways. I have asked East Grand Forks to ask Polk County to do that because we heard at our City of Grand Forks, East Grand Forks City Council meeting is that in with the MPO is that both counties were going to be all in on the Merrifield Bridge, and we want them to be all in and also help cost support. And I think that's really why it was important to have them as part of the selection process too. We also heard from the North Dakota DOT regarding the Intercity Bridge, and we've talked a lot about 42nd Street underpass, and I think Al's going to come up and talk a little bit further about that. The interchange on 47th or 49th, wherever that's going to be. Those are 2 projects in which we have a partner in the North Dakota DOT, where they really want to try to get us across the finish line with those 2 projects. I think with the bridge projects, the Intercity Bridge in particular, the DOT is going to have more of a hands-off approach. They're going to say that's a local issue. It's an intercity bridge. It's not on a DOT highway or anything like that. So it's going to require both cities really to lead that process. And hopefully we get a project at some point down the line where there can be some state cost share on that. But just so you know, the state of North Dakota is not going, they're going to be a real supporting actor on that. I think also in a complementary way, the Merrifield Bridge, the feedback that we've gotten is that, we've had some ancillary contact with that bridge, but we don't know if you can put on-ramps. We don't know if you'd have to rebuild the entire structure that now goes over the interstate. So there's not a lot of depth and detailed discussion that's been had on Merrifield Bridge. So I think both projects for the bridge locations are going to require a lot of local leadership, both from the counties and from the cities regarding that, because the DOT has got enough things going on right now, and they've got 2 projects they're really trying to support us on, and I don't think they're looking for a third one right now, is the message that I think we've received on these. So with that, David's been in the weeds on this stuff, and I know East Grand Forks is going to run this through their city council for approval. They started out with 50-50, so we're going to change, we're asking you to change the cost share to a fourth for all the various entities. We have asked our colleagues at Grand Forks County to bring it to their first commission meeting when they have the new commission seated in December, and they said they would do that, not only update on having a Merrifield being a priority, but also helping to cost share on this particular study. So with that, I'd hand over to David for any of the particulars.
Thank you, Mr. Phelan. Regarding East Grand Forks City Council meeting, they're going to be discussing this, I believe, tomorrow evening. I think Mr. Phelan ended up handling the vast majority of the other technical aspects. SRF was selected as the best consultant. Went through the entire selection process. There were 2 consultants. We actually originally had 3, but one of them withdrew during the process. And with that, staff is recommending that we concur with the City of East Grand Forks to approve the agreement with SRF for the scoping engineering services, the amount of $151,170.33, and requesting a 25% cost split to each city and each county, and approve any necessary budget amendment contingent upon city attorney review.
Mr. Krenko, correct me if I'm wrong, that's not what the City of East Grand Forks proposed, though. The City of East Grand Forks proposed a 50-50 split on the cost.
That is correct, and we're proposing a 25-25-25. But still awarding it to SRF. Correct.
Thank you. Mr. Kavami, question, comment?
So I don't, I'm not going to argue the scope of what I think you're trying to accomplish. I guess I just don't understand why. You know, I feel like, for me, you know, I feel like the joint meeting that we had with the councils was good to have a good first step, and I don't understand why we would hire, I don't think we need more data, I guess. I think that this isn't a data-driven decision. I appreciate Merrifield being looped in and that being something that's part of the larger project. But for me, this is still something that's a council political, emotional decision that needs to be worked through. And I would approve, you know, 3 more joint meetings before I'd want to approve a penny for a report that I don't think we need. I think we have great data. I think you guys have done lots of great work. So I guess, yeah, David, just tell me why I'm wrong.
Well, there's a lot of details that goes into this, and Mr. Phelan was correct, and this is kind of the first incremental step for it. This is the scoping element of it. This is to determine what is the
process.
Yeah, the planning and environmental linkage. What is that going to cost? How should that be scoped? That way, then we have a step moving forward, and we have an idea as to what it costs. Otherwise, a lot of times, if you don't have a full cost or a full scope developed, you're not sure how much it's going to cost. And that's what this first step is all about, is trying to figure out what should that scope be, what is a realistic cost. That way, then we can figure out the next step moving forward and cost shares.
Sure, but didn't SRF, they gave us some costs last time that were presented. Is that correct?
That I don't recall.
I remember, you know,
there was a general cost maybe for an estimate, but not necessarily all that was going to be involved to design the bridge. There wasn't a more detailed layout. That was more of a ballpark estimate.
Sure. I remember going through the cost benefit and all of these different studies that showed heat maps and way things changed, and I wouldn't agree it's deficient, but I don't think that data is the problem. I have a really hard time voting for any more reporting or any more studies. I feel like I really feel like we need to have more joint meetings. If this is something that the communities want to come together and move forward, then let's come together and move forward. This looks great. I have no doubt that you did everything appropriately and correctly, and I support everything that you guys are doing, but I don't think I can vote yes on this until we get some more working together, you know, actions happening other than just hiring somebody. Thank you.
Mr. Veen, something to add?
Well, I guess we've been looking at this for I can't tell you how many years, and I think the consensus that we've had, at least in the MPO, was the willingness to hold off on the project. It had already been approved by city councils on both sides of the MPO, was to take a step back and to follow through with identifying a more, I don't know, appropriate process, because this was, it wasn't on the federal aid system for how we might be able to deliver a project. The benefit cost ratios have supported a south end bridge it seems to me it's the logical next step so that we develop the information, the funding formulas, and all of the other criteria necessary so that we can figure out how best to move the project forward. Without doing this, I think I don't know how we would move forward without doing this.
Question for Councilmember Veen. So, Mr. Veen, so we're going to have this data and then what? You know, I feel like, again, we don't agree. We have to come to the table and work through things. We have amazing information already. We have pages and pages of it and hours of reports that I've had the pleasure of sitting through. It doesn't matter. You know, we have to come together as communities and decide what sacrifices we're going to make to try to make a connection within our communities. So why? You know, what steps do you need other than let's get together and talk?
Well, and maybe others have additional information. We've clearly identified the benefit cost ratio and the importance of doing it. We don't know, at least at this point, how we would go about funding it. And I'm going to probably lean on engineering a little bit more with more of the details, but instead of putting it on our list and moving it forward, the idea was just to take a step backward and get this information. Personally, maybe we're more aligned than you think, Mr. Kwame, in that we've already agreed to the project. We should just implement it, but I don't think we know how to implement it.
Knowing that, fellas, Mr. Phelan, the last time we stood up here and talked about a bridge, it was related to our ask of the state legislature, and you looked at all of us and said, we don't have time. We're not ready for this. We're years away. We're years away from this. We're at least 3 years from needing any of this information. I mean, the scoping phase, they're talking about doing the scoping phase with the goal is to bring the owner agencies and regulatory agencies together to define the requirements necessary to achieve regulatory approvals. The outcome will be a well-defined scope, schedule, and budget. And I don't know what that budget is for. Is that the budget to get the regulatory approvals, or the budget related to building the bridge, or the budget to take us all to lunch? I have no idea. But is the budget to initiate, and then it says to initiate the environmental review process and technical analysis. So is that the budget for the environmental review process and technical analysis?
That is correct.
So we're going to, just so we're clear, so everyone understands this, we're going to spend $151,000 to call the regulatory agencies and ask them, what do we need to do to get their approvals? And then we're going to put that in a fancy document and then give a budget that says you can pay me another 250 grand to then call them back and actually put in the paperwork for those approvals. In three years from now. I love it. I for one, I don't know if I agree with Mr. Kvame's simplification of this, but I do like boiling this down into its simplest things. I think Mr. Karenko is an amazing engineer who works really hard, has our best interest in mind, and I'd love to pay him on a weekend to do this project. Put a few more bucks in his pocket, and then he'd have and I guarantee we could get this done. Mr. Weber?
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
There's a motion by Weber, second by Lenski. Is there additional comments?
See you next week.
Yeah, we'll do this again next week. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Aye. Motion fails. Tied 3-3. Thank you. We can do this all again next week. Great. Item 2.8. No. Item 2.9, Project 8656, Award of Urban Grant Program Funding, Intersection Improvements, Belmont Road and South Fifth Street. Mr. Kranko.
Good evening, President Sandy, and members of the committee. We got some good news tonight. We ended up receiving notification that we were awarded funding for the Urban Grant Program for the intersection improvements at Belmont Road and South Fifth Street. Overall, the amount is about $1.3 million for intersection improvements at this location. And then these funds are eligible to including construction determined by the NDDOT. Cost not considered eligible will be 100% city funded. And in order to actually have these funds programmed in, the DOT is requesting that we notify them that we are willing to accept the funding to proceed with this project, and we have the local share for it. With that, staff is recommending authorizing city staff to accept the funding, approve any necessary budget amendments, and proceed with project development and advertising for preliminary engineering services for the project.
I'll move approval.
Moved by Weber.
I'll second.
Second by Lunsky. Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Item 210, Project 8554, Preliminary Engineering Reimbursement Agreement, Left Turn Lane Modifications, South Washington and 28th Avenue South. Mr. Kranko.
Thank you, President Sandy. This project involves extending the southbound to eastbound left turn lane at the intersection of South Washington Street and 28th Avenue South. We ended up receiving HSIP, or Highway Safety Improvement Program funds for this a little while back, and this is the standard agreement with the DOT to proceed forward with the preliminary engineering, and pretty much ends up saying that unless the city ends up canceling the project or we have significantly material changes that reduces the scope of the project, that the city will reimburse the DOT on their engineering expenses. With that, staff is recommending approving the preliminary engineering reimbursement agreement with the NDDOT and any necessary budget amendments.
Moved by Kavami, second by Weber. Thank you. Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Item 211, Project 8540, Federal Funding Request for the Urban Grant Program. Mr. Kranko.
Thank you, President Sandy. This was the previous program that we just received an award on. This has to do with funding from the state for downtown projects for encouraging revitalization. The project that staff is recommending to move forward is the other project that we submitted last year and did not receive funding on, and that is the reconstruction of North 4th Street from 1st Avenue North to 2nd Avenue North. This is going to be phase 2 of 3 phases of reconstruction for this, kind of doing the same thing that we did on North 3rd Street, working our way north on North 4th Street. Overall, the anticipated project cost for this would be about $2.8 million. And with that, staff is recommending approving the Urban Grant Program project funding request and directing staff to submit the approved project to Grand Forks East Grand Forks MPO for submission to the North Dakota DOT.
Great. Moved by Weber, second by Osowski. Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Kranko. Item 212, Project 8540, Federal Funding Request Urban Roads Program.
Thank you, Council President Sandy, members of the Committee of the Whole, and thank you for the comments on 2.8. Mr. Kranko is doing a fantastic job on engineering and support, as is his whole team. 212 has got some numbers in there that we're asking for on the urban requests, but the whole process here, I think, needs some discussion and background, so you guys get the story kind of behind the numbers. So this goes back to, the 42nd Street grade separated crossing. And you remember, this thing's been going on for like 30 years. There's a reason why it isn't done. It's because it's very complicated, it's very pricey, it's got a lot of moving parts to it. We talked a few months ago about the kind of the game changer with, number one, there was a transportation infrastructure funding bill passed by Congress, and number two, the really big thing is BNSF, Burlington Northern Santa Fe, was willing to take the lead in actually applying for some of these federal funds. I think there's 3 different programs that they're funding for. That's a real game changer. In a 30-year history, this is a game changer. So we have an opportunity here that we haven't had for a while and may not come again. So anyway, the general programs that they're applying for have about a 50% federal cost share. So we got a $60 million project. They're applying for about $30 million worth of federal dollars under the special applications. They've been working with the state and the city. The state's throwing in some money. The state's got some other federal dollars they throw in, and bottom line, the city share for us in the overall application is about $16.8 million under the application that they applied for. One of the things that has come up under the application process is not all of the costs are cost eligible underneath that umbrella. They put it together that way, which is fine. But really, the preliminary engineering, the design engineering component of this type of project is not cost eligible. So we need to come up with the design component, which is about $6.4 million. What we are proposing under the documents that you're going to have tonight, there's a piece of it that's going to come under the urban program. There's a piece that Mr. Krinko will talk about again later under the regional program. What we're proposing is to take that $6.4 million, split it 50-50 between kind of the state regional system and the city urban funding system out of those 2 different pots of money that we get. And so what you're seeing under item 212 is the $3.2 million urban funding request that we're putting in. And that would be an 80-20 request. So we'd be looking at getting 80% urban funding, which is federal, and then match it with 20% local money. We've had some discussions around the edges with some of the DOT folks, not the upper management, but they're still trying to figure out the programs. There's a bunch of money in the pipeline, and nobody knows exactly how it's all going to shake out relative to how it's going to be fed into the actual system. So what we're doing is something, again, unusual, one of several things that are unusual in this application, but we are asking for a special allocation of urban money. And the significance of that means is that it wouldn't take away from our other projects that we already have programmed in the system, which would be the Columbia Overpass, North Columbia Road reconstruction, some of those. We don't know if that will ultimately be approved or not. The other unusual system that we're asking for here is we're asking for 2023 dollars, which is, under these programs, usually they want to program these things 3 and 4 years out. We need to get the process moving, because the special federal dollars that are available under the infrastructure program have to be under contract by 2024. So we've got a window. We have a window of opportunity, and it's finite. And so in order to move into that process, we need to really start the design component. So all of those moving pieces are going on in here. I'm going to quit talking. There's more permutations. I'm not going to really talk about them, but that's essentially what we're looking at doing under this urban program is front-ending the design, splitting it with the state under the regional and the state. Now the regional system is an 80-10-10, which means 80% federal, 10% state, 10% city. So what we're proposing in here is about $1 million worth of city investment, and the rest would be leveraged, state and federal dollars. Maybe I'll just stop there for a moment, catch my breath, and see if anybody has any comments that I can confuse you with an answer.
So, Mr. Grasser, I'm going to read in 214 as well. It's Project 8540, the federal funding request for the regional roads program. That's the other half of this, the other $3.2 million you were talking about. So, assuming people are on the same page, we could approve them both at the same time if people are interested. There any questions for Mr. Grasser?
Yeah.
Mr. Weber?
So I'm looking under analysis and findings of fact. Anticipated city cost for the project, approximately $6.2 million. But that's over 4 years. So I don't know if my question is for you, Mr. Grasser, or for Ms. Storstad, but is this $1.5 million a year for those 4 years, or how does that get pulled out and paid for?
I was going to say, do you want me to take that?
Because I'm also hearing that, that we don't have to pay the full 6.2, that we're able to get, but there's some disconnect for me on this.
Councilmember Weber, the 6.2 million that you're seeing, that is the total city share for the entire program.
For the entire program.
So that includes the Columbia Road overpass rehabilitation, the Columbia Road reconstruction from University to 8th, all of those.
And, okay, then I'll go back to my other question, then the 6.2 million, is that spread over 4 years? With a budget impact of 1.5 million a year, or is this a one-time 6.2?
That is over the course of from 2023 to 2026 because we do not have a requested project in 27.
Okay, the staff report I'm reading says 2023 to 2027, but...
That is correct. We just don't have a project in 27, so...
So it's 3 years, not 4 years?
4 years. 23, 24, 25.
How are we doing on paying for this?
Mr. Webmo. Mr. Weber, President Sandy, members of council. So these are programs that we have built into the CIP, so it's all programmed out into your projected 6-year budget plan in your CIP.
So you're not seeing any impact beyond the budget that we've already approved for 2023?
No, I do not, and we have that through our street infrastructure fund, and
Right.
we'll look at that annually and you know, relook at priorities, but it is built in as part of that process.
Right. Thanks.
Any other questions for Mr. Grasser or Mr. Krenko on 212 or 214?
If I may, I do, if I can pontificate a little bit, and I don't do this very often, so I'll grab it tonight, though.
Never.
One of the things we're trying to do here for everybody, myself, I think everybody included, this project's been going on for 30 years. I think everybody's kind of like, yeah, another study. We're just going to do some more stuff and kick it down the road and try to make some decisions. We need to have a change in mindset, and that's part of what we're trying to push with the DOT, is that we want to program actual money. And this is money coming out, we're pushing for 23. This is real. Okay, we're moving from this 6-figure hypothetical study type process that we've been engaging in for a long time to 7-figure actual expenditure type things with a sense of urgency because we have limited timelines. Again, this window of opportunity may be here. We may not get any money. We don't know. We're hoping to know by probably this summer whether any of those program applications will be successful, and we'll have to adjust part of where we're going. But right now, we have 5 different iterations of the project under study under the environmental review. With that sense of urgency, we need to bring that back. We need to make some decisions. And I can tell you with a high degree of certainty, you won't get all of the answers that you're looking for or that we are looking for. Obviously, you can make a better decision the more information you have. We have too many moving parts in here and too many players in here that are hoping that this iteration or that iteration will come to play so I don't have to make a decision, whoever the agency or individuals are. And so I think one of the things we're going to end up having to choose, if this is our number one project and this is where we want to go, we're going to have to choose the best path and start down the path. We'll have to react then to what comes up. Obviously, what I'm referring to primarily, you've got, you've heard the term 4F on, the golf course, and then we have the access issues with the gas station. Those are the 2 biggest pieces that are kind of into play. And there are no alternatives that are all one or all the other. They all have different kind of permutations between each other. It's a sticky mess. And I think the only way to really sort it out is to start to pick one and start moving through that process. And obviously, if you're going into design, you have to have one that you're moving into the design for. So I'm trying to set that stage, paint that palette a little bit, and we may repeat it periodically because it's going to be a tough decision that's going to come to the city council. We're going to come back with 5 iterations. I don't think we're going to have, I don't think we're going to have any big revelations between the information we had last time and what we're going to bring in a few months from now. There'll be some incremental knowledge, but I don't think you're going to have an aha. There's the answer. That's easy. Now I know what to do. So I'm just prepping I'm prepping everybody for that discussion. So with that, I appreciate you letting me kind of carry on a little bit here, but it's going to be tough. It's a tough one.
Let me try this. We've just heard an argument, worried about spending $140,000. 151, I was understating it. 151, and this is about 40 times that. But this is a good project, this is a necessary project, and this council has now agreed that it's our top legislative priority. It would be embarrassing to try going to the legislature, telling them this is our top priority, and we're not willing to put any skin in the game at this incredibly opportune time to do so. I'll move approval.
Moved by Weber. Is there a second? Second by Lunsky. Any other pontifications? Hearing none. All those in favor of items 212 and 214, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Grasser. Item 213, Project 8540, Federal Funding Request for Highway Safety Improvement Program. Mr. Krinkle.
Thank you, President Sandy. This is the Highway Safety Improvement Program. We discussed this one earlier with the preliminary engineering agreement. Same program. This is a 90-10 split for safety funding, and this ends up involving the intersection at Gateway Drive and North Columbia Road. Proposed project that staff is recommending is including realigning the northbound and southbound left turn lanes, which is kind of similar to what we did on 32nd to avoid that negative offset. Increasing the radiuses around each of the corners to make sure that trucks don't run over the curbs, and also to get the traffic signals out of the clear zone. That way then there's a reduced likelihood of them actually being struck by a vehicle running off the road, as well as some pedestrian improvements. We've got a number of comments from the public regarding bicycle and pedestrian safety at that location. Overall, we're looking at a total project cost of about $2.5 million. City share on that would be approximately $500,000. And with that, staff is recommending approving the HSIP project funding request and directing staff to submit the approved projects to the MPO for submission to the North Dakota DOT.
Thank you, Mr. Krinkle. I think I asked you the last time we talked about this. Is there any way to get a right turn lane heading north off of Gateway Drive on
President Sandy,
North Columbia Road?
the right-of-way on Gateway Drive is exceptionally limited. Right now, we've got 5 lanes of traffic and a sidewalk that is immediately behind the back of curb. And unfortunately, on both sides of the road, you have a cemetery. So acquiring additional right-of-way would be a little on the difficult side, I would imagine.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, motions? Pontifications? Anyone have any thoughts? We're going to take the rest of the night off? Okay, do you want me to move approval?
I'll move approval.
Thank you, Mr. Veen. Is there a second? Is this out of protest? Are we protesting, Ms. Lensky? Thank you. There's a motion by Veen, second by Lensky. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Same sign. It's pretty funny. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 215, Project 8638, 2023 Biodredge and Biosolids Reduction. Ms. Parvey.
Good evening, President Sandy, members of the committee. In this past year, we did a pilot project working on biosolids and biodredging. We began treatment working with Jeremy Tangwell and Josh Gleason, who are both here tonight. Jeremy is online, but Josh is here in the audience if we have any questions for them. We worked with a third-party review to make sure that what we were working on was able to be supported, and the results were actually pretty positive. We were able to reduce 53,000 cubic yards of sludge from the pond, which allows us about 10 million gallons of additional capacity. And then we were able to prevent the accumulation of another 2,000 and about 300 cubic yards of sludge from accumulating. We have an area within the pond that is kind of creating a sludge island, and that's one of the attachments that I can bring up tonight to show how we've been reducing that sludge island. But basically, over the last 6 months, only 6 months, we've been able to gain 106 days of retention time for the water in 2 areas of our lagoons, as well as reduce the island about 3.3 acres. It's about 40 acres, the sludge island, so it's a fairly large area of sludge, but we're confident being able to continue this program into 2023 for a little less than $300,000 that we should continue to see really, really good progress. The sludge island itself is breaking up a bit and kind of moving. We've done some LiDAR and bathymetric mapping of the area through Midwest Planning to be able to show how that sludge is being reduced within the pond itself or in the lagoon. And then we've done some sampling through RMB laboratories to support that too. So the return on the investment for what we're showing now is 5.8 to 1. And Jeremy and Josh are both able to talk a little bit more about how they came up with a summary of a return on investment with what we had talked about with mechanical dredging, which is usually quite expensive to accomplish. And in this area, we're just trying to buy some time so we can continue to utilize those lagoons with the sludge that's been accumulating since about 2003. We do have a biosolids project included in our facility plan for wastewater treatment, but this is gaining us some opportunity to maybe make some improvement there and give us some more capacity for treatment.
Thank you, Ms. Parvey. Any comments or questions?
Maybe tonight's most important item.
Maybe.
I'll move approval.
Moved by Weber. Is there a second? By Osowski. Thank you. Any other comments? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 216, budget amendment for the Water Department. Ms. Parvey.
Thank you. So we've had some anticipated cost, as most others have as well, but we've seen an increase mostly in our chemical costs, electricity and heat at the facility itself. That budget amendment is supported by about $1 million in operations costs. One project we were able to do that council did approve back in June was replacing the HVAC system at the Clearwell, the 2001 Clearwell. And so that project I included on this budget amendment, as well as I forgot to take the opportunity when it came before council to get that approval that night. But otherwise, operations costs in chemicals are about $350,000. Electricity about $500,000, and heat about $112,000 is what we're anticipating to help through the end of the year.
Yikes.
So
have we budgeted for these higher expenses for next year?
We did include an increase for next year.
Well, that's good. Great.
And able to keep that within our rate structure.
Yep. Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Do we have any option?
Nope.
Yeah.
No options.
I'll move approval.
Our budget can be a
Moved
bit of
by
a
Weber.
mess, but yeah.
Second by Osowski. Any other comments? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Any other council members have any additional comments for the good of the order? Moved by, yes?
Just a reminder, Brett and I are having a joint ward meeting on Wednesday at Phoenix Elementary at 6 p.m.
6 p.m., Phoenix Elementary. Everybody bring your popcorn. It'll be a good time. Weber moves to adjourn. Is there a second? By Lenski. Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. We're adjourned. Thank you.